Ladies and gentlemen, have AMD killed off the RX 7900 series refresh? Well, the answer is potentially yes, with a leaker on Twitter, or the Watts, stating that indeed the N31 refresh seems to have been just killed internally by AMD. Now, funnily enough, this actually is not the only time I've heard this. A couple of sources have actually reached out to me, maybe just over a week ago, almost 2 weeks ago, I think. And one of those sources had actually been really good previously. And they had told me that they had been hearing through the grapevine that RDNA 3 refresh is potentially dead. And I'll tell you why in just a second, but let's just get the spiel out of the way first. Now, this was not some random source. As regular viewers will know, I think I was about the first person to leak the single GCD info. And I actually received that information from a couple of key individuals. That person was one of the people who told me this information initially. However, a couple of other very good sources had told me that no, the refresh is still alive and kicking, but it's not going to be released tomorrow. I also want to be very clear that this is not impacting N32 or N33. With those caveats out of the way, the reason I've basically been told that the refresh may be dead is basically due to engineering resources. Now, this is going to shock you, so brace yourself, but companies don't have infinite abundant resources, not only in terms of software, but engineering, marketing, all of that stuff takes time, effort, and manpower. And so what I'd basically been hearing is AMD want to double, triple down on things like their APUs, for example, Phoenix Point and, all this other stuff, but also really focus on not only their server offerings, which are looking very good at the moment, but also RDNA 4. And RDNA 4 is a monumental engineering effort. I've already put out a couple of leaks for RDNA 4 with very early information. But basically, for those who missed that, I'll try to remember to link it in the video description, but long story short, the GCD as we know it is dead, and it is now replaced by, well, basically a GCD is now a kind of an amalgamation, like a combination of chiplets, which are now known as GCXs. So you could have 2 or 3 of those, for example, which come together to form a larger whole. And there is a lot of moving parts in that, like just the amount of complexity to get all of that humming together. And that's not even including things like, the GCXs/GCD, whatever the hell you want to call it. Actually, it's going to be somewhat a stacked die, of course, so that obviously needs to speak to things like the Infinity Cache and needs to talk to, the memory and all of this stuff. Basically, there's a lot of engineering effort behind that, so AMD kind of just doesn't want to, put some resources onto that when it, take some resources away from that, when instead it could just focus on RDNA 4 and kind of the road ahead. I also think that AMD are going to be really fighting an uphill battle with RTX 50. Again, I've put some early information out for RTX 50, and I am fairly certain that my preliminary information is pretty accurate. It is basically a ground-up redesign RTX 50, and I'm almost positive at this point it does have advanced, let's say, changes in the architecture. For example, denoising, which is going to make things like path tracing considerably faster. I've also heard, and this is not new information, again, I've gone into it much more in depth in my previous video, and I don't have the notes up right now, but it also has a drastically different SM and bus structure as well. It's going to be fascinating if this information is true, because I think NVIDIA are going to just be as absolutely aggressive as they can for things like path tracing. Obviously, they feel that ray tracing, path tracing is the future. And AMD's design is very different. They are obviously developing a product which, the best way of describing it is it's a lot more versatile. They obviously have blocks within their GPU, even for example the way that ray tracing works. RDNA 2, for example, where the TMUs can be used for the ray tracing and all this stuff. It was very different at the time, and people were like, oh well, that's actually a really cool idea. And of course it worked extremely well in things like consoles. While I'm at it, let's hop, skip and jump our way to the RTX 4060 Ti. This is just a small update. You may recall that Coppereye 7 Kimmy put out a tweet on the 18th, and they stated that the power consumption for the RTX 4060 Ti is just 160 watts, so that's actually considerably lower than the previous generation. That's with 4352 CUDA cores and 8 gigabytes of memory. But As for the performance, according to Kopitai 7, we're looking at a performance of around an RTX 3070. Now, obviously, that's not, well, what you could call a huge increase in performance. I do have my own results for the 3060 Ti and the 3070, but I'll just ninja a couple of tech spots here. So for example, if we look at the RTX 3060 Ti in Death Stranding, this is at 1440p, we are looking, I'm just going to talk about the averages here just for everyone's sanity, 122 FPS, and compare that to the RTX 3070, that's 134, so it's not exactly what you would consider a huge increase, and that's, well, that's being kind. The 3060 Ti versus the 3070 in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we're looking at 10 frames increase. I mean, many of these performance jumps, I mean, jump is possibly like it's not even a hop, it's not even a step, it's like, I don't even know what you call this, but for example, the 3060 Ti to the 3070, around 17 frames a second higher in F1 2020, which I never actually tried out, but apparently is a really good game. And basically what I'm trying to say, guys, is that the RTX 3060 Ti to the, the RTX 3070 is not exactly a huge leap here. So basically, comparing the 4060 Ti to this, it's all going to be dependent on the pricing. There are obviously other benefits of the Lovelace architecture. For example, the fact that in this case you're getting massively reduced power consumption, you do get things like DLSS 3, and naturally this also doesn't take into account things such as ray tracing performance. But I think that's just about it for this particular video. It's been kind of a quickie. I actually wasn't going to record today. The only reason I actually recorded, honestly, is because a number of folks actually messaged me. I think I received like 2 or 3 messages within like 30 minutes of this tweet going up, asking my opinion on it. That's the All the What tweet, I mean, not the Kopitai 7 one. So I thought I'd just quickly address it. I am almost done, actually, with the move. I've basically moved everything physically at this point. I have desks and stuff which should be arriving tomorrow, so I'm going to be doing a lot of office assembly over the next week or two. There'll be, a lot of stuff that's going in, and then I'll probably give you guys like a, I don't know, like an office tour. I don't know if you would be interested in that. I have no idea. Like, I really suck at this whole, like office tour stuff. I've never done it before, so I don't think it would be the best, but hey, if you really want to deal with the pain of me doing that, then I guess I could. But yeah, that's about it for this video. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. Stay safe, everyone. And again, apologies for just very inconsistent content and not being on camera. I'm literally surrounded at the moment with like tons of boxes, and it just, yeah, it's just basically like it's like a war zone of moving. You know what it's like, though. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Bye for now.